energetically grounding myself was one of the first intent exercises, spiritual steps, you could say, that I really challenged. And I fought back against it for certain reasons. We'll go over that. I wasn't sure it worked for certain reasons. We'll go over that as well. And it was one of those things that once I started doing it, once I got past these myths that I created in my mind, it was a game changer. My spiritual path just opened right on up. I was able to access more, feel more, have more centeredness. It was wonderful. So today's podcast episode, I want to talk about 3 very popular myths about grounding. And I say they're popular because I wasn't the only one to have these feelings. Go figure, 20 years later, all the people I've met, all the people that I've taught, these are 3 that are very common. Welcome back to the podcast. I love this topic. I love it. This is one of those topics where I had to overcome a couple hurdles with it, and this is what it's all about. Once you overcome some hurdles, going back and saying, hey, to the next person, are you experiencing these hurdles? Here's what I know. That's what it's all about. That's what community is about. That's what being a lighthouse teacher is about. Just, I'm the lighthouse, you're cruising on your path. Let me just tell you some things, shine some light on a few things as you cruise on by, and then hopefully your path will be less rocky. And this is a good one to fit into that category today. Today we're going to talk about grounding. I'm going to cover 3 myths that are very common. I've been teaching, like I said, for so long that I've seen this pattern establish with my students. And once people get over 1, 2, or all 3 of these myths and process them and sit with them and think about them, the grounding exercise that they do, hopefully in GCP, Ground Clear Protect. If you're not familiar with it, if you're new to this channel, please look that up. I offer it in a free course. I've been teaching people that one technique for free for 15, 17 years, something like that. Foundational, please look it up. I know, I say that all the time. Bear with me. But the first step in GCP is grounding. And a lot of people struggle with it for different reasons. And today I'm going to talk about how I came to understand how important grounding was for me as an absolute newbie who didn't know what I was doing around the age of 32. And then I'm going to go over each of these myths. And my hope today, my overall hope today is that you got this, you got this. You're like, I'm good. I got it, right? But I'm going to listen because she's going to hit some really interesting points about spirituality and what grounding does. Or if you're not quite sure on your grounding technique, my hope today is that you'll leave this episode empowered and be like, now I got this. Now I got this, Bo. So let's jump in. For me, if you've been following me for a while, if you've been on the podcast for a while, you already know my story, so forgive me. I will say it again really shortly, quick and short for people that are new. And if you're new, welcome. Welcome. Like, follow, do all that kind of stuff, and let's build some community. For me, I was 32 when I opened up. Before that, I was a complete skeptic. The shortest version of this is complete skeptic, math major in college, science-based, didn't believe in anything. My grandmother passed, and within an hour, showed up in my living room in spirit form, 70% solid, scared the socks off me. Okay, so here I am, 32 years old, just dumbfounded. I decide I'm going to figure out if this is real or not. Couple months into exploring this, not having anyone around me in my circles that was spiritual, I had to seek out people and seek out help. And a couple months in, I had proof that came through that was like, I can't deny this. This is legit. So let's do this. Then I decided I was going to start to explore and play around with some different things, right? And I had no understanding at that point about grounding yourself or clearing out your energetic body or protecting yourself, filtering what comes in for your highest good. I didn't understand any of that. So next thing I know, it's a hot day, middle of the summer. So at this point, if I think about timing, this must have been almost a year after I opened up. I still didn't understand about grounding. Mind you, I opened up spiritually 20 years ago, as of the recording of this episode. So there wasn't a lot out there like there is today. I couldn't just jump on YouTube and learn something. So I didn't understand grounding, and it was a hot day, and I was feeling kind of irritable, and I had some chores to do. Now, if you've read my book, Cracking Open Adventures of a Reluctant Medium, because that was me, then you already know this story. If you haven't read the book yet, this is what happened. I was home. It was just me and my two boys. They were young. They were young enough that we did the head shave in the summer, just with the clippers. That's it. There's nothing fancy. We were on a tight budget. This is how you're going to get your hair done. And they were cool with it. They loved it, actually. When they decided they wanted to grow it out and they had their style that they wanted to do, they did. But up until that point, we just, in the summer, just for ease, I'd use clippers. So there we are. Got the AC running. It's hot. We're inside. AC was running. I used the clippers on one of my kids' head. Great. Got to my other son, and halfway through cutting his hair, the clippers died. They just quit running. And I didn't know what the heck was going on. I said, sorry, kiddos. Guess what we got to do? So we had to go to the store. My kid with like half, he didn't even want to put a hat on or anything. He didn't care. We went and got clippers, came back again. Going through it. Then the air conditioner dies, quits running, same day. Okay, that's interesting. I think it was the next couple of days that two different cars died on me. And it was really stunning because it wasn't until clippers, air conditioning, both of those, just quit working. A couple days later, a car. 2 or 3 days later after that, another car, second car. And I'll explain what happened with the cars. It wasn't until the mechanic, who was working on, by the way, both cars at the shop that was next door to our apartment complex, it wasn't until the mechanic said to me, like, he leaned in and he was like talking real quiet because he didn't want anybody to know he was saying this. It wasn't until he said to me, I think he got that thing that my brother's got. And I said, what is your brother? What's your brother got? What's going on? And he said, I don't know. Every time my brother gets like really angry or something, or, he'll walk in a room, lights will flicker and shut off, and watches quit working. And, it's this thing. It's got like he puts out this electricity thing or something, and then everything quits working. Now the mechanic was saying this to me. And that was when I went, maybe this isn't a coincidence that within this short period of time, all the electronics, and a laptop, by the way, all the electronics were just going wonky around me. The mechanic said this because both of the cars, I was driving my car, right? We had two. And I was driving my car and I was frustrated again. I know don't hold it against me. It was 20 years ago. I was mad at everything. And I'm not anymore. So it's a good thing. That's my personal commercial for following a spiritual path, because life does improve with one. But I'm driving and I'm frustrated, and all of a sudden the dashboard lights up, like it's just like a wah wah, and then it goes back down. I get to I was going to Starbucks to pick up a chai, and I park, I go in, I come back out, and the car's completely dead. The alternator, and I think it was the alternator and the starter, died. They were just like, nope, had it towed. Then a couple days later, I borrowed my husband at the time's truck to go, I think it was to Barnes and Noble. It was probably to Starbucks to get a chai. Anyway, I believe I had gone out to dinner with some of my friends or something like this, and I went to go stop and pick up a chai. I know, I drank a lot of chai teas back then. And I pulled in the parking lot, and his truck did the same thing. As I'm driving through the parking lot, it goes, lit up. It just went whom, and the dashboard got brighter. And then I parked it just fine, went in the store, came out, and it was dead. And the same thing had happened to the truck. So the alternator and I think 2 batteries or something. It was like an alternator starter combination. I don't understand engines. I just remember it was the exact same thing. And he said it would be akin to like put an electrical charge into the key. And so we're standing there, and it was when that mechanic said to me, "You got the same thing my brother's got. He blows stuff up all the time." That I went, maybe there's something to this. So I brought it up with my acupuncture. I'd found an acupuncturist, and I was going to them on a regular basis because I had some back pain back then, and acupuncture was taking care of it. I thought it was the weirdest thing back then, but now I get it. And I went to him and I said, "Okay, this is what's happening. I got 2 cars that are dead, the alternators or the starters or whatever burned out. It quit running. I've got clippers and air conditioning and a laptop. I don't know what's going on." And he just smiled and he goes, "It's time to start talking about grounding yourself because your energy is everywhere. You have stepped into this spiritual path, been doing it for a little while now, and you're building up your energy, but you're not grounded. So it's like energy is just sort of shooting out everywhere you go. So if you ground, you can center and focus that energy instead of having it be, reactive out in the world." And I said, "Good. And it'll protect me from, mechanic bills." Cause wow, I thought it was a tough day having to buy a new set of clippers. We were just going to suffer through the air conditioner and then 2 car repairs. Just that landed hard. But here we are today. He was, so let's jump into the first myth because he was the one that helped bust this myth for me. My first one was, well, if I ground, because he taught me how to ground, which is there's a generic teaching of it that I think is the best teaching of it, which is in some way, shape, or form, set your intent to connect with Mother Earth and ask Mother Earth to hold you, right? Whether it's tree roots coming out of the bottom of your feet or steel pillars coming down out of your legs into the ground, or maybe it's vines that are coming and wrapping up around your legs, or maybe you're standing in a flower patch, doesn't matter. Whatever radiates with you, whatever sparks your interest in connecting to Mother Earth, that's what you use to ground. And it's an intent exercise. Your intention is to anchor into the earth. And he explains this to me. And my first response was, that's counterintuitive, no pun intended there, but I'm trying to connect spiritually. So I'm trying to go higher. I'm trying to talk to my grandmother and, connect with spirit guides and things like this. And this is what he told me. So this is the first myth that we're busting today, you and me. When you ground, it's like a telephone pole. The deeper you bury the telephone pole, the taller the pole can be with stability. And that made so much sense to me. And it just clicked. He said, grounding is not about pulling yourself down. It's not about limiting yourself. It's about anchoring in so you can go higher. And I thought that is the best analogy. So you're not limited when you ground. Instead, what happens is you're able to go higher to higher vibrations with more stability, like I said, more balance and centeredness. So you can experience what you're experiencing with more clarity. I was like, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Okay. I start grounding. It just shifted first off, stuff stopped breaking. So that was great. And that was my introduction into GCP, Ground, Clear, Protect. Because grounding is one thing, but if you want to really, really have as much clarity as you can have, grounding yourself so you can go to higher vibrations with stability, excellent. Clearing out the energies that you're carrying that are not yours, brilliant. Protecting that new space that you've just cleared out that is grounded with an intense exercise, like a bubble around you that filters out what's for your highest good or what's not for your highest good and allows in what's for your highest good. It's gold. All 3 of those together. So please be doing GCP. Okay. I'll get that. I'm just such a GCP pusher, but it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful exercise. As I'm walking along, right? So now I'm doing this grounding technique. I'm starting to learn about clearing and protecting myself as well. It's wonderful. And all of a sudden, it started to not work so well. Not work so well. And I've been using it for a while. It was working great. I felt balanced. I had a clear head. I could sleep at night with ease. All of these benefits were coming in. I was responding instead of reacting, which helped cut back on the chai teas because I was using those as a soothing mechanism. But everything started to become very balanced. And this is why I tell people GCP so often, because it really, really helps. But then all of a sudden, and I was taught to ground with tree roots coming out of my feet into the ground. All of a sudden, I came across the second myth that was blocking me, which is that there's only one way to do it. That there's only one way to do it. And it was the tree root theory. And a lot of people use that. And it does work great for a lot of people. And that's the one I was trying because that was the one that was introduced to me. And I started to feel the effects of it wear off over time. And I didn't know what to do. I was like, it's not working. And I got really caught up in that very human reaction of it's not working. This is what it is. This is exactly how you do it. And it's not working. So the second myth here is that there is one way to do it that works the best. That's just not the case. Until we bring our creativity into these types of practices and until we start to morph them and shift them and adjust them to something that we can get excited about, we're not going to be fully in. We're not going to be, all in. If you're going to ask me to go to some event and then tell me what I need to wear, I'm probably not going to have as much fun as if I get to pick what I want to wear to that event, right? So it's a limitation that comes in when someone says you have to do it exactly like this. This is the only way. And this is really across the board. This is one of the biggest limitations for people opening up their intuition, accessing mediumship or psychic abilities, is that they have been trying for so long to do it the way that somebody else does it because it worked so well for somebody else. I was invited by one of my clients to go see a famous medium. We'll leave it at that. On stage, there was an audience of about 1,000. And it was one of those shows where it was a demonstration and he was reading for different people. And he's got his reading style. At the end of it, or in an intermission, I think it was, I don't recall, he said, I have students and I'm helping them, learn how to do mediumship. And I'd like to introduce you to one of my students. I think it was during a break. And then the student proceeded to come out and was going to do a mediumship reading for somebody in the audience. And if I closed my eyes, I swear, I wouldn't have been able to tell the difference between the teacher and the student. He spoke exactly like the famous medium. He spoke exactly the same way. He said all the words, even the pattern of the way he was doing it, even the types of things he picked up. And spoiler alert, he didn't do a great job. But I don't think that was his fault. I think it was more that he wasn't allowing mediumship to come through in his way and his style. He was trying to do it so much so like the teacher that I don't think he was able to access what he probably could have accessed. So I see this type of thing happen quite a bit. I've even been to different classes and things like this early on. I gave up on some of that when I finally met my spirit guides. But I've been to classes where they would say you have to do step 1, then step 2, then step 3. You have to do it exactly like this, and and they didn't leave any room for creativity. Now, I talk all the time about GCP. Step 1, ground. Step 2, clear. Step 3, protect. But I'm not going to tell you how to specifically do each of those for you. I'm going to ask you to find the elements that you love. Maybe think of a location you love or different feelings or whatever. Customize it to fit you. And that really is the second myth. It's not that there's only one way to do it. And once this came through, I was like, brilliant, great, I'm going to get creative. And for years, I would imagine red, those red velvet ropes that are in like fancy theaters and stuff. I imagined a red velvet rope wrapped around my waist, and it shot straight down into the earth, to the very core of the earth, and then it pulled tight. And that was my grounding technique. And I came up with it on my own. It just popped into my head. I'm like, I'm going to try it. I did GCP again with that grounding technique instead of roots coming out of my feet. Bada bing, bada boom. It worked. I was like, yay. And over the years, that's changed. And that's also okay. So this is like myth 2 part B, subsection B. Not only do you not have to do it exactly the way somebody else does it, you should creatively make it fit you, but also there are going to be times in your life where it's time for a change. It's time to change up how you're doing something. There are things that are going to stay the same your entire life, but when something starts to dull or it doesn't feel as effective, it's a welcome moment to change things up a little bit and get going in a different direction, which leads me to the last one, the last myth. This is probably the most popular one, is somebody thinking to themselves, because this is very natural, that they're not doing it right, or they're not good at it, or it probably isn't going to work. And we can put this under the category of the myth, I'm not doing it right. I don't know if I'm doing it right. It's that self-doubt. The response to that myth is you can't do it wrong. You can't do it wrong. If your intent is to ground, the visuals that pop in or the feelings that you use, because not all of us are visual, or the feelings or the process you walk through that you choose, you're not going to choose the wrong process. And you can adapt that process as you go, as it feels better and better and better, until all of a sudden you're not using roots anymore coming out of your feet. Now you're using a red rope wrapped around your waist and holding you tight like a light blue balloon. And there I am, just like, no. But anyway, you can't do it wrong. It's not doing it right or doing it wrong. It's believing in your intent. So I guess we could approach this in an angle of, okay, it is possible to do it incorrectly. The only way you could do this grounding technique incorrectly is if you solidly believed it wouldn't work. I guess we could go into that angle. We really could. So the bottom line with that is it's not necessarily what you picture, what you feel, or the steps you take. It's not that you're going to get it wrong on how you think of your creative way to do this. It's that you need to believe that it works for you. It's an intent exercise, and the power of believing in yourself and your strength and ability to be able to do this, that's the key. That's really the key. There's no way to do it incorrectly other than believing that you can't do it. So it is one of those things where, and if you're listening to this and you're like, well, what if I think that? I'm going to ask you to do me a favor if you think that. I'm going to ask you to take your worry that you're going to do it wrong, or worry that it's not going to be strong enough, and I'm going to ask you to imagine pulling that out, shoving it into like a little box off to the side, and saying to your worry, stay in that box for 60 seconds while I do my job, and then you can come back again. I need you to separate from the belief structure that you're not going to do it right. And even if it's fake it till you make it for the first couple of times, in that 60 seconds that you're walking yourself through a grounding exercise, maybe you're just asking Mother Earth to ground you. Maybe it's that simple for you. That's a beautiful practice, right? Simplicity can be beautiful on a spiritual path. All I need you to worry about is that, and not worry, all I need you to think about is how good you are at it. Even if it's fake it till you make it. For those 60 seconds, you are so good at grounding. You're so good at grounding. It's almost gross how good you are at it. It's like championship level at grounding. If you need to say something like that to yourself before you do it, please do. Please do. Notice how it rolled off my tongue so easily. I'm going to tell you why. Because that's what I do. Along these years, that's what I've had to do in different moments. When I convinced myself that I couldn't get names of deceased loved ones, that was just too hard. I convinced myself of that. There was a couple weeks where before a client would come in, when I was doing professional readings, I would walk around my office saying, I get names all the time. Names are easy. They just come through consistently. It's so easy. And then guess what? I would get names and they were accurate. I've done this in so many different things for a long time. And you'd be surprised with this. If you're in the Sage Circle, my online spiritual community, I do card readings twice a month for the group, right? For everybody. You pick which card you want read and then I read the cards. It's super fun. And it's a skill that I've very sharply developed and I love doing it. But what you wouldn't know if you watched one of those readings today is that 15 years ago, I was too nervous to read cards. So I was like, I'm not good at reading cards. And I had myself convinced of that. That's another one where for a while, I bought a couple card decks and I would say, I am so good at reading cards. This is so easy. It comes through so naturally. And it's a little fake until you make it, but it's really good. So give it a try. Couple key points here. Not even just a review. We'll call it a review of the key points. You can't do grounding wrong. What you can do is not believe in yourself. So it doesn't matter the style or what you think up or how you creatively create your practice. The thing that makes grounding work is your belief in yourself to do it. The second piece that we talked about is that limitation of if I ground, I won't be able to go higher. And I need to just remind you before we wrap up here today that when you ground, you will have access to so much more that you're looking for. And then lastly, to wrap it all up, when it comes to grounding, there's no best way to do it. And it can change over time. So get creative. Try different things. Allow yourself that ability. Give yourself permission to say, I wonder if I did it this way, how would it feel? Try it and you'll feel if that's really grooving for you or not. No matter what it is, grounding is beautiful. It's wonderful. Any chance you can get outside and touch dirt and grass and, anything like that. That's a physical grounding. It's also a spiritual grounding. It's just a practice that's absolutely wonderful. Plus, I'm going to save you mechanic bills. I'm telling you, you just don't want those mechanic bills. So make sure to ground every day. Make sure to do GCP, and I'll see you at the next episode.